Hey everyone, welcome into another episode of No Holds Barred here at the Toronto Sun. Rob Wong with you. Pleased to be joined today by one of the most iconic wrestlers of all time. He is an ECW legend, a WWE Hall of Famer, and you can find his One of a Kind with RVD podcast wherever you get your podcasts. It is Rob Van Dam. Rob, great to chat with you today.
Right on, man. Glad to be here on this December morning.
Yeah, it's much nicer where you are in Las Vegas than where I am in Toronto. It's a little chilly up here in Canada. It's interesting. I spoke with Jeff Jarrett a couple of weeks ago about his own podcast and his experience doing it. What's it been like for you to have this platform where you can pretty much talk about whatever's on your mind?
Well, I like having the outlet for that reason. I talk about whatever, and it's my expression, my answers, my perspective. So, everywhere else, if I'm reading a script or people want me to talk about something specific or whatever, this one is just it's me. So it's like if you like RVD, then cool. If you don't, then just move on or something. We don't I don't worry too much about there's a lot to the podcast stuff, especially on YouTube, that I don't even know, and I'm not gonna learn it. If my hosts pick it up, then good, but otherwise, like some of the other no, and I watch YouTube a lot, so I notice a lot of the other people, they don't swear or they even bleep out words, like hate words and stuff like that, and sometimes I wonder if that would make a difference but at the same time, it would make a difference in my delivery because then I'd have to worry about that.
Yeah, it's RVD unfiltered, and we get your thoughts as pure as they are on whatever the topic is. So that's cool to see. We saw you a few days ago, John Cena's final match in DC. You were sitting with Mark Henry. I've gotten the chance to speak with Mark a couple of times. Such a great dude, and such a lot of great insight from him. But it was cool to see you get a great ovation from the crowd as well. Doing your signature pose. But I'm curious, when did you find out you were going to be there, and what was the night like for you? Because it seemed just like an electric atmosphere and sort of sad in some ways with John's career coming to an end.
Right. Like we knew it was coming, and then when you're at that moment and then the bell rings, it's kind of sad. It's kind of like, damn, so it's over. Like I don't know if I want it to be over yet. There was definitely that kind of feel, but it was a celebratory feel all day leading up to that, with just the everything that they were doing backstage and everyone that was there for that reason. I guess I found out it seemed like it was about 10 days before, like no more than 2 weeks before they invited me up there and I was able to do it. And I said, sure. It's it's always good to get on the TV and get and makes a lot of people happy. Everyone's like, dude, I saw you on TV. You got the loudest pops, and that's always a good thing. And it's always good to let WWE remember too how much the fans love me.
Yeah, no, they still love you for sure, and we saw that in the ovation. Look, I'm sure you've seen it by now, but actor Timothy Chalamet was on Cody Rhodes' podcast, and he mentioned that 2006 One Night Stand was his favorite pay-per-view, and that's such an iconic match between you and John Cena there. And I'm sure you've been asked about it a ton over the years, and especially of late with everything that's been going on with John. But is there something about that night that always sticks with you, whether it's the crowd and interaction between you and John? I imagine there's just so many things that come to you from thinking back to that night specifically.
Right. And what I would say to that from my perspective, yes, of course the fans were incredible. Like there was never a night in my 35-year career where the fans were had that energy. There's been times where they were 100% for me and for my style and against the other guy, but it still didn't compare to everybody buying a ticket just to see me win and to see John lose, and they were going to do everything they could to make that happen. That just the fact that it was ECW, which I've always been most comfortable with that kind of style. I mean, that kind of became after ECW, like I just kind of um a lot of times people just expect me to be ECW RVD, but then if you're in WWE, you can't just bring a chair into the ring anytime you want. They got rules. So, there's a big difference. So to be back in that ECW environment was amazing. But what I'll say though, that you might not have thought of is the buildup for that match, RVD versus John Cena, for me was my entire career. So it was me sticking to my guns, always being extreme and hardcore, always listening to the right people and ignoring the right people that were trying to change me, to conform me. And uh, and the fact that I brought ECW back, if I hadn't gone to Vince and said, "Hey, ECW," then I wouldn't have changed the entire playing field the way that I did, and I don't think that the stars would have lined up the same way. I wouldn't have been the rightful opponent for John Cena at that time. But all of that up till that point was the buildup. So for me, the vindication was winning, holding the belt afterwards, and then it kind of felt like good. I did I stuck to what I felt was right, and it paid off.
Yeah, really a full circle moment that led to that match with you and John. So, for John, that's like 4 years into his main roster career with WWE. It's very early on in his tenure. Did you have any sense back then that he would become what he is today in the wrestling industry?
Um, y- yes, I had a sense, but at the time, I was more in that competitive state of mind, that perspective where I'm in the dressing room and looking over my shoulders at everyone else, saying, it's going to be me, not this guy. And now that I'm not living in the dressing room, I look at it so much different. The longer you're alive, the bigger picture you can see, and you never get to understand that because you never can see the picture until you're actually older, like you can never see more than you can see, and it's just true. You always get a bigger picture the longer you're alive. And so now I have a lot more love for everybody, especially the wrestlers, that I used to maybe want to punch in the face, and now I'm and and now I'm more, like happy to see them, and hey, I'm glad you're still alive and healthy. And um, I knew Cena was really good the first time I saw him. I saw him years ago when he was working at the Gold's Gym in Venice Beach. And I didn't know him yet. I went in to pay and he let me in, and said, hey, he said, no, you're fine. And he let me in because he let wrestlers in free. And I saw him around that time at an indie show. And he was a standout to me. I knew that my time during WWE, he was like the guy that the company was pushing, like he was the man. And I don't know if I understood it as much back then, but I did know that Vince loved him, WWE loved him. And then, the more I watched and looked at him, the more I realized like this guy is the hardest worker in the company. It's one thing to be able to kind of picture yourself in a better position and say, man, I wish I was making the money this guy was, or but when you think about it, he works every day, I was working like almost every day it felt like, and I was getting some days of sleep, but it wasn't enough. And this guy was going and doing Make-A-Wish meetings on those days off, and just being the face of the company. He was always the guy they were pushing forward to do everything to promote the company, and that is, goals for wrestlers to get up to that point. But honestly, not everyone could do it. The guy's work ethic is amazing.
Yeah, it's not for everybody. Like you say, the schedule that you guys used to have, I don't know how you were able to, function a lot at the times with the amount of days that you had to go out there and wrestle and travel and all of that. So yeah, really a special person, John Cena, and what an incredible career. He's going to be missed as far as his in-career stuff or in-ring stuff goes with his career. I'm sure we'll see plenty of him down the road in WWE. So Survivor Series went down recently, and if you're around my age, late 30s, you definitely remember remember the first ever Elimination Chamber match, 2002. I think a lot of people have seen the clip. All you guys, I think it was the day of checking out the structure before the match. Do you remember when you first heard that WWE was even considering doing something like this? And what did you think of the idea?
I guess I don't remember exactly when I found out. The first time I remember realizing what was going on was just like what you're talking about in the daytime. We're sitting in the empty building and we're looking at this cage, and they had it hanging from the ceiling at first. I remember one of the agents coming by and saying, you know, we're gonna lower the cage onto the ring like in a while. I don't know, 4 o'clock or whatever they said. And you know, if you guys get a chance to get in there, you know, move around a little bit, look at it, get your juices flowing in your brain and think of what you could do in there because we've never had one of these before. You know, try and be creative, think of things you can do with the steel grade that you couldn't do in a normal match. And I do remember that part, but I don't know if I knew before that day what what we were doing. And even if they told me, I probably wouldn't pay attention until I saw it. You know, you get that's part of the way that I keep my Zen balance is until it happens, I don't really believe it. You know, people talk a lot, and if I don't need to remember it, you know, then I don't want to. It's just extra stress. You know, when I do interviews, sometimes people say, if you'd like, I can send you all the questions ahead of time. I'm like, why do I want to see the questions twice? You know, that's more work. That's so much more work for me, and that's not the way I roll. So I remember seeing it for the first time and realizing, like, wait, we're getting in that. And then when they did lower it, of course, and we're in there, we're walking around the ring, feeling how hard that steel grate is. And you know, it was like say at the top of the ramp. It felt like that, solid steel. And so I started, of course, you know, thinking, Rolling Thunder out here, maybe. You know, but one thing I remember is I really wanted to jump out of the ring but catch myself on the cage and then do a back cross body from the cage. And I kept bringing that up. And every time I bring that up earlier, Triple H would be like, yeah, maybe. That happened a lot in my, you know, like that was, ask Jeff Hardy about that sometimes. Me and Jeff Hardy always experience that a lot. Like, oh my God, why do we even say anything? Let's just go out there and do it. Because we always got that pushback, it seemed like. Although they were always like, any other ideas? Do you got any ideas? And then, you know, when we did have an idea, a lot of time I'd be like, yeah, maybe. But point is, when I got that spot in, a lot of people said it was their favorite spot of the whole match. Kane was one of them. Said RVD's Spider-Man spot was my favorite. And so, just like always, you know, got to fight to get my stuff in, and then afterwards, then celebrate those who got it, who
Yeah.
understood it.
No, absolutely, and yeah, that spot that you mentioned is an iconic moment from that match, and just watching the highlights, some of the bumps you take in that match are just like it's painful even watching it. I can only imagine what it was like to actually experience it, like for yourself. But you talked about the way you wrestle, and even a guy like Jeff Hardy, and I think about current day wrestling, and the athleticism these days is through the roof. I mean, people coming from gymnastics backgrounds or martial arts backgrounds, what have you. It seems like wrestling these days is maybe the most athletic it's ever been. But your moves and some of the stuff you did, while some people may try to replicate it or copy it, I don't know if that's the best way to put it. Nobody seems to be able to do what you did and the style that you did. Is there a reason you think that might be the case? Is it, people just not wanting to copy RVD and trying to be the next RVD, or is there something specific about what you did that other people maybe can't do or do as well?
Well, I have an opinion on that. I don't know if it's right or not. But what I notice when I watch wrestling now is that they don't have the same mindset that we had. It's changed so much along the way. And like way back, like in the early 90s, um, if I was wrestling a veteran when I was a young green kid and I'm wrestling Greg Valentine or Manny Fernandez or any of those guys, there's no way I was going to go up to them and like like nowadays. Okay, I want to grab your hand and then I'm going to walk on the top rope. Don't try and pull me off or anything. Just base me. It's okay that everyone's watching. You just base me. The whole mindset of so I grew up in the business with the number one rule being protect the business first. Always, my whole career. That meant when you talk about it in interviews like this, that meant when you're in the ring doing stuff. That meant if you're setting up a spot and everyone can see that you're setting up a spot, it's not worth it. You don't do it because it kills the business. That's gone now. So in my opinion, it's the mindset. They don't care now. They think these wrestlers grew up watching us thinking that it was a complete work. And then when they got into it, they made it a complete work. So now the fans that are watching that are getting an even more watered down, scripted um, kind of entertainment. I think that it's more about being in the right spot for them, not believing that they're in a fight. And like there's just so many things, What about the surprises? I mean, if you're running at me in the corner and I'm going to move, I want the people to think I'm not going to move. I'm going to wait till I want you to think I'm not going to get out of the way in time. I'm going to wait till the very last second and boom, and jar it, and then, ooh, that's exciting. When you move out of the way and the person still has to run halfway across the ring and they do it anyway, like an idiot, and then run into the corner post, that kills like the whole thing. I mean, you're watching a product that's obviously just them going through something and it's the whole thing, and they're just going through it, not thinking that they're actually, gotta um, take care of themselves like in a fight. I mean, sometimes I see them go up. Sometimes I see them like they'll backdrop somebody, go up to the top rope to do a moonsault, and never even turn around to see where the person is. Like, how do you do that? I actually asked Kurt about it. I saw that. When we were in the front row. And okay, he moved. He was going to move, or he was going to miss the moonsault. So for him, he's just going through the motions. And I saw that. I said to Kurt, I said, I hate it when they do it. He didn't even look back. Could you? And Kurt goes, I know. Why would you not look back to see where your opponent is to make sure you're going to hit him? I said, could you ever do that? They always do that now. And we had that conversation. He said, no, I could never do that without looking back. And for them, it's natural. And I think there's more botches than ever because of that, because the style has changed to people who aren't as experienced, who learn everybody's finishing move, everybody's all moves in the school, and then they go and try and find their place in the business, running through a script. That's how it comes across to me.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that part up about looking because, I was just sort of reflecting on watching your matches over the years and like, yeah, you always did that. Like there were moments you would hop up on the top rope and you'd just take a quick peek back and you kind of,
It, it's
jog my memory about that.
But it's the mindset. It's not like a little thing like, okay, I got to remember to look back. It's because I think like I got to see where he's at. I got to aim my jump. It's because of the mindset. And I think that's my answer. I think that's what's different. I don't see that when I'm watching it. I don't see that they believe that they're actually in the middle of what they're in. And that's what I got taught, like from the Sheik was like soon as you walk through the curtain, you got to have that mindset that you boom, everything is turned on. I'll turn it off when I'm done. And these guys, it seems like more of a hybrid between being off and on when they're out there. They're working, they're fighting, but they're working together, but they're remembering stuff. They're going through this. They're trying to be in place. And I think for me, it's just the belief in what I'm doing. Some of the comments that I've heard people say about my match helped me come to that conclusion. Because when I wrestled in AEW a couple of years ago, I just threw somebody, whoever it was, outside into the guardrail or whatever. But a fan, somebody commented about how just the way, like when I went to throw him, how I used my other hand to walk along to get the momentum, and I pushed myself, that's not something like, oh, here's a little thing I can pick up. It's believing in the moment.
Yeah, it's just common sense. I think that
I think
makes
that's what they don't do. They don't believe in the moment anymore. At least that's my opinion and my answer.
Yeah, no, it's a great perspective, and you don't have to sell me on that. I grew up watching wrestling in the '90s and or early 2000s, so I definitely can appreciate a lot of what you said. Last one for you, Rob. Really appreciate the time. 2002, again, you wrestled at WrestleMania 18 here in Toronto. I was there. I was 15 at the time. I actually broke my leg a few months prior, so I had to crutch my way up to the 500 section nosebleeds to watch it all. But you beat Regal that night to win the IC title, and of course, it was also the night of The Rock versus Hulk Hogan. What do you remember about that night, and where were you when that specific match was going down?
Well, what I remember about my match, that was my first WrestleMania. It was my first time ever being in front of that many people. What I remember about what was the arena in Toronto?
Skydome at the time. Yeah, it's called Rogers Center now.
Skydome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I remember is that I was out there with William Regal and I couldn't hear the crowd. And I thought that they didn't like the match and I couldn't figure it out. I was disappointed, even a little bit frustrated because I thought the match was going well. And when I got through the curtain afterwards, all the agents were standing and clapping and they loved the match. And I was kind of surprised. When the building is that big, a lot of the noise just travels straight up. And so, like where you were, if you were up there in the nosebleeds, I couldn't hear you. It didn't come down to the ring. And everyone out in the front row, their volume went up there as well. That's what happens with the really big buildings. And I remember that. I remember when I watched Hulk versus The Rock on the monitor, that's where I was watching it with the other guys and wherever they had the monitors set up in the back. But I remember thinking at the time, like I was at school. That's what it felt like. I was like every little thing that they did seemed to mean so much. And I remember I was just enthralled by it. I've always wanted to go back and rewatch that match now, with a 20, 30 year window to look at it from this perspective. But I just remember that I was just amazed at how their connection with the crowd, how good they were, how they knew the right thing to do, and every little thing, even just the raise of an eyebrow or just turning that, everything seemed to mean so much, and that's great. I wish it could be like that all the time, but instead, now guys do a million things and none of it means anything, and this was the opposite.
Yeah, well, it was such an incredible night. It took me a long time to sort of have that perspective because, when I'm 15, I'm, enjoying it, of course. But looking back now, it's like you were there, Hogan's there, Rock, Flair, Undertaker, DDP, like some legends in the industry that night. I mean, Regal as well, like just a crazy, crazy night and such an iconic night. Rob, really appreciate the time today, man. Thanks so much for doing it.
Absolutely.